Hello, my name is Pat Patten, and thank you for joining us today. Have you ever read something and wondered, how did the writer come up with such a terrific idea? Or maybe you thought to yourself, I wish I could write, but I don't have a clue how to begin. Our goal with this program is to explore the deep waters of creativity and to expose the answers to those elusive questions. To do that, we've interviewed some of the most exciting writers in America today, and we hope what they have to share about their writing process will inspire you to put your ideas in writing. All right, we're here today with Holly Black, the author of Beyond the Spiderwick Chronicles and Ironside, a Modern Faerie Tale. This is wonderful, Holly. Welcome to Ideas in Writing.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. This is great. This is great. So can you tell us a little bit about the books?
Well, I have been writing about fairies in contemporary settings in pretty much all of my books, and this new book, The Nixie Song, is the first book of Beyond the Spiderwick Chronicles. We did 5 chapter books of the Spiderwick Chronicles and then a field guide, and this is a little bit different. It takes the setting from New England to Florida, and some of the things are a little different, but you'll find some familiar characters. And Ironside is a sequel to my first book, Ty, the Modern Faerie Tale, and so it was really exciting to get back to those people and that setting.
Now, our audience is interested in the writing process as well. So for the people out there that want to learn about how to begin, where do you start to do something like this? Where does your inspiration come from? How do you approach writing a book like this?
Well, I think inspiration can come from a lot of different places, and I think that writers in general are people who are often obsessed with really weird things. They are people who, become fascinated with a topic, and will buy books on it and then read all these books and think that they're wasting their time, and then years down the road, will find themselves using that in their writing. And I think that that's a perfectly natural and normal part of the writing process. I think sometimes it can be an image that inspires you. Sometimes it can be an idea. Sometimes people talk about dreams. I have never had a dream that has inspired my writing, but I am always hoping that someday I'll go to sleep and an entire plot will come to me and everything will be really easy, but it's never happened. But I think the thing is that, you can start with something small and build it. And you can start with plot or you can start with character. It's just important that you kind of move it forward and keep figuring it out until you get the whole story.
So the idea is that, do you start with, when you begin a book, do you start with developing the character, or do you make an outline, or do you just start jotting down thoughts about where you think you might want to go?
A lot of times I'll start with the characters. I think that, often I'll start with something, an image, an idea, and then from there I'll say, okay, well, who are these people? And, I'll try and learn as much as I can about them. And then I'll try and make an outline. I'm a very bad outliner. I'll make an outline and then I'll write the book, and the book will have nothing to do with the outline whatsoever. Right. But I can't. But the process, is part of what eventually gets to, the final place. I think the process is some sort of inventing and then reinventing and pushing yourself. Like, what would be cooler? What would be better? What would make this more interesting? What would nobody expect?
Yeah,
is part of.
Now, did you start writing as a full-time job, or did you start writing as a hobby and it worked into something, or how did you get into this?
Well, I've been writing for a long time, since I was a little kid. I would make up stories. Definitely a hobby. In fact, I never thought, I am now doing this as my full-time job, and I never thought that would be the case. I always thought this is something I would be doing in addition to something else. And so my first book, took me 5 years to write. I had no idea how to write a book. I didn't understand plot. I would just write the same book and then rewrite it and rewrite it and rewrite it, because I could tell it wasn't right, but I didn't know how to fix it. And I had a lot of elves and fairies sitting around experiencing ennui, sort of like we're so sad. why are we so sad? Because nothing is happening in this book, you know. And slowly.
So the plot line was
that was what was difficult for me. I had written a lot of poetry, and I blamed the poetry. I was fascinated with the moment.
Yeah.
And I was like, the structure. I don't know what to do with all the structure.
Well, it's interesting because you talk about getting inspiration from maybe a painting or something, and a lot of poets write ekphrastic poetry, which is they experience maybe music, a work of art or something, and then they start to write it down. So it sounds like what you did is you've extended that ekphrastic poetry process and turned it into a book.
That's really interesting.
2 books. It's an interesting concept, isn't it? I think that's great.
I think it is different. I mean, when you're talking about being inspired by art, I mean, I do the Spiderwick books with Tony DiTerlizzi, and one of the interesting things about working on those books is that we send stuff back and forth to each other, and so he sends all the art to me, and we, the book sort of evolves where it isn't. Whereas, when I'm writing these, I'm writing them in isolation. I'm sitting there and they're not illustrated.
Right.
The process is very different when you're working with visuals. When you're, when you can say, okay, I'm figuring out this character, and then he goes and draws the character. And when I see the character, it changes what I think about them. And so that's been a really interesting difference.
Well, when you talk about now, what was the name of the person who's your artist?
Tony DiTerlizzi.
Tony
works with me on these books.
DiTerlizzi,
yes.
Okay. Did you connect with him while you were writing the book, or did the publisher connect you with
We
Tony?
were actually friends for a long time. When I was writing my first book, he was publishing picture books that he both wrote and illustrated, and he ripped my manuscript out of my hands after I'd shown it to him and showed me what to do with it, and was very instrumental in me being where I am.
So to get people interested in getting started, to go through this process, what if you were to say one thing they could do just to begin, step 1, what do you think that would be?
Well, all right.
That's
a very difficult thing.
I know.
I mean, I think the things I'm getting 3 pieces of advice for everybody.
Great.
I think the first thing is you have to read a lot I think you really have to read everything, not just in the genre that you like. Read nonfiction, read mysteries, read fantasy, read realistic fiction, because everything has different tricks, and you're learning and absorbing those tricks as you're reading. The second thing is you have to write a lot. You have to write a lot before you get something that you're going to like. You have to just keep writing.
Right.
And you have to stick with it even when you are frustrated, because it is incredibly frustrating. In those early days when you know what you want it to be and it isn't that thing yet.
Right.
And then my third piece of advice is that I think having a critique partner was really helpful to me. It was something that would push me. It gave me some accountability. It made a huge difference.
So were you, did you find this through a writing group, or did you just happen to find another writer that agreed to help you critique and work with you on the material?
I happened to find another writer, I think critique groups are great. I have a critique group now. I have more people than I started out with, but finding somebody who likes the same kind of books that you like, who appreciates your writing, and whose writing you appreciate.
Right.
It really pushes you, to not be lazy, and to tell you, to have somebody who's really going to tell you when you're doing a bad job, when things aren't working, and also somebody who's there to tell you this is fantastic. You need to send this out. You need not to change.
And you need to scratch this bit out and go with that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for coming to meet us today. And your books are available. Who is your publisher?
Simon & Schuster.
Simon & Schuster. And I'm assuming we can. You got a link. We'll write down the links to your site, which we'll have on Ideas in Writing. They'll be able to find your books. All right. Thank you so much, and thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching Ideas in Writing. We hope you've enjoyed the program. If you're interested in finding out more about how to put your ideas in writing, go to our website at www.ideasinwriting.org. Or if you're an author or someone who works in the publishing industry and you would like to be interviewed on our show, you can contact me at Patten at ideasinwriting.org. That's PATTEN at ideasinwriting.org. Thank you.